guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are making the Penelope bag by Kaya Papaya. It's like a really cute crossbody bag. I've even done all the internal pockets. I have used a sateen to make this bag. So this is a sateen fabric, both the lining and the outside. And I will put a list of all the interfacings I use for this bag. So if you'd like to see how to make it, stay tuned. Alrighty guys, so I have prepped and ironed all of my stabilizer on. And I have a big bucket of stuff. Now I've also pressed the vinyl together. So I'm going to stitch that first because I can hear it slowly lifting. So I've got two shades of brown here and I'm just going to stitch one on top of the other and one slightly thinner. So this is just the strap that I've decided to do for this particular bag. So I want a nice long stitch length and then I'm just going to line these up. And I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the top skinnier piece of vinyl. So I'm just holding it in the center as best I can. If you don't think that you can manage to hold it in the center, you can always use some double-sided tape to stick it down. I'm just feeding it slowly, trying to avoid any kind of pulling and pinching. You can see by the little curve that I've got a little bit, but I should be able to work that out. I can hear the sticky tape lifting, so I'm trying to be a little bit more quick. Alright, there we go. So I don't want to go too fast and compromise on everything, but if I go too slow, all my sticky tape is going to lift up because I can hear it doing it. So I'm just going to press it down as I need to. And then I'm going to stitch across the end. My vinyls were a different length, as you can tell, but I can't quite cut it off yet. So I'm going to do a couple of stitches and then chop off the excess like that. Okay, and then we're just going to stitch down the other side, and you'll find that the second side is always quicker. It's just one of those things. It's all been placed, now we're just stitching it down. And then stitch across the end as well, and we're done. So that is now my shoulder strap. Just trim that bit off right there. So, I'm also going to grab my strap adjuster. So I'm using a 3/4 inch set today, I guess you'd call it. So I'm just going to feed this through and then stitch that down, and then I can put the strap aside. I'm going to do some back stitching, and we're all done. So my strap is now done, and I won't need it till the end of the bag. If you're doing clips to be able to remove the strap, you could do all of that now, but my strap is going to be permanently attached to the bag. So therefore I don't now need it until the end. So next up we need our magnetic snap. And I'm going to take the flap piece, which is this one, and attach my magnet. So I'm going to fold it in half to find the center because that's always the easiest way. And then I'm going to check to see where I am placing the magnet. So I'm going to take this, fold it out, and I need to grab the pattern. Hold on one sec. Okay, so I've got my pattern pieces here, and I have punched a hole where the magnetic snap needs to go. I'm going to place it upside down so that you can't see any of the other markings. And then I'm just going to use an ordinary pen to draw the hole, making sure that I've got enough gap. There we go. So you just line this up. And draw the hole. And then I'm going to take my gasket and draw the two lines that we need. Now I like to cut all of my magnetic snap openings with a craft knife. So I put it in at the base with the blade pointing up and then push it in, and it goes on the angle that follows the line. So that's the easiest way that I've found to do that. And then I'm also going to grab a little bit of fray stopper glue. Now I got this one from Spotlight, but you should be able to get it from most fabric stores of some, like any brand of this. If you just heard a really weird noise, that was my cooling system kicking in, which explains why I was feeling a little bit cool. All right, so I'm gonna pop this in and then put the gasket on the back and fold it out. Like, whoops, so that's that magnet in. And then I wanna also grab the front body of the bag, which is this piece here. And I'm going to take this, because this has got my placement piece, and grab a pen and draw the center, and then grab a gasket, mark the lines. It's the same motion over and over with magnets. I'm going to push it in at the base and push all the way through. So this is going through foam stabilizer, my interfacing for my exterior pieces that I use, and then the fabric as well. So then again, because it's fabric and not leather or vinyl, I'm also going to just put a small dollop of the fray stopper. This will just prevent the fraying here, obviously because it's fray stopper, but it just means that your magnet will last longer in the bag. So there we go. Now they're both in. So now I'm going to take, I'm following the instructions by the way, I'm trying to do it in the same order that they do. So I'm going to take my outside and my flap lining. Now I'm going to clip these together with Wonder Clips because this faux leather is actually quite slippery, and so it's quite likely that it's going to slip while I try and stitch it. So I'm just going to chuck a few of the Wonder Clips on. I'm not going to do an extreme amount, but I also don't want it to shift while I'm stitching. There we go. So I'm going to put the lining side down. Because it's the lighter weight fabric, I always try and put the lighter weight underneath, as it will then be picked up by the feed dogs and so motion through smoothly. So I'm going to backstitch at the start and then pretty much just follow that around and backstitch. So we all love a good backstitching. Trim off those tails. And then I'm going to take my Class A knife edge scissors and chop off the excess to help the curve go smoother. And pop that in the bin. If you've got some pinking shears or zigzag scissors, you should definitely use them. Unfortunately, mine are now a little bit too blunt, and I haven't had a chance to drive to a place to buy new ones. So I'm just going to now turn this through. Just stick my hand in to push out all those curves. And that should turn through nicely. This would also potentially look really nice with some piping in that seam as well, just as, you know, for future thought. All right. And then we are up to the next step. Push it out and then top stitch along the edge. So I'm going to go back up to my decorative stitch length, which today I have decided is 4, because I just like to switch it up and keep you all guessing. And then I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge, which I do with all my top stitching. If you're new to top stitching and too scared to get that close to the edge, you could do 1/4 inch. Because it's easier, because it means that the whole foot is along the fabric, so it's less likely to slip off, which means that your top stitching will actually be neater. Okay, so now we're going to baste the edge closed. So I'm still going to back stitch because I don't want it to come out. Baste it closed there, and then it says lay it this side up. And that's all the edge closure. All right. Baste that. Lay the flap up. And then draw a line. So I'm going to use a friction texter and I'm going to draw a line where it says. Now I'm doing this behind the machine so that I don't give away any measurements. But it does say to draw a line across it. So that is done. Okay, so now we're going to grab our gusset piece and our accent piece. I don't know why I've got this giant tub on here. It's really not necessary. There's not that many pieces. All right, pop that down there. That's better. I've got more space to work now. So this is my gusset piece. I've interfaced it with my extra heavy non-woven fusible. And then this here is my base stabilizer to really give it some body without being too thick. You could also potentially use foam if you don't have access to stabilizer. And so now I'm going to take some double-sided tape and I'm going to fold in the center, each side's to the center, sorry. So I'm essentially folding it in half, but just not on itself because I want no raw edges shown. If you do have raw edges and you want to cut it thinner, you could just use some edge coat on the edges to give it like a pop of color. That would potentially be very cool too. Especially if you're doing like an all black bag, you could have like bright green stitching and bright green edge coat, which would just give it that little extra something out of something that was originally quite plain. So I'm just folding both sides into the center and pushing it down. Now I know that this is not going to last me very long because this stuff is quite stubborn to press. So I do know that my double-sided tape won't hold this for long, which is why I didn't do it off camera like I did the other one. Squishing it over. Like that. And then if you need to give it like an extra bit, you can actually just push it against the edge of like the table. And what that's going to do is it's going to help crease the sides, which theoretically will help the tape stay a little bit better. Okay. So then I'm going to grab my square ring connectors. Now I'm using square rings because I will eventually just be joining the strap directly to the bag. But if you were going to have it so that the strap is removable, with swivel clips, you would use a D-ring here. If you use a square ring with the clip, you'll find that it always sits funny. So that's why you should do that. And then we're going to measure how much we fold over because it's got the measurement there for us. I just need to do a little bit more. And then I'm going to clip it with some Wonder Clips. I could also probably do it on here, to be honest. That would work as well. Right, so to there. And then I'm going to add some clips to that as well, just to hold it in place. You could also put some double-sided tape. Whatever makes you happy, really. So then I'm going to grab my gusset piece. And I'm going to line this up into the center. But to hold it in place, I've just decided I'm going to use double-sided tape. So that's actually, and I want the skinnier one. I'm going to use double-sided tape to tack it in place while I stitch it, because this is going to be the easiest option for me. You don't have to do this, but I do quite often speak about using the double-sided tape a lot. And I do use a lot of it. Alright, so let's try that again. You could even, for those that can't eyeball it, and I should teach this is why I'm doing this. You could find the center, and then draw a line. Like that. And then, even though I've pulled off the double-sided tape, if I find the center here, I could do that, then flip it over, and then line the centers up. See how that works too? Yes. And then I'm just going to use my double-sided tape to tack it to the center of everything. Like so. And then I can take that off and just make sure that it's lined up straight. Straight is very important. Right, there we go. I have now placed it. It won't move, so I can get it under the machine without worry. That's what the double-sided tape is for. And then we're going to stitch all the way around the edge. I haven't actually read that yet. No, we are. Okay, excellent. I find if I don't read the instructions, I tend to skip things. So again, I'm on my more decorative, bigger stitch length. I don't know if you just saw that, but that shifted as I tried to stitch it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the center, and I'm going to back stitch first, and then go forward. I find I get less slippage if I back stitch first. So I'm just going slowly because I want the machine to do even, lovely stitches, and I find if you try and go too fast while top stitching vinyl, sometimes it doesn't move as nicely as we would hope, and it distorts the stitches and makes them shorter, which is not what I want. I want it to look pretty. And I could have actually gone up one more stitch, which is what I just manually did. Needle down, and then back down the other side. Now I'm going to do this because I've decided it's going to look cool, and I largely base what I'm about to do on the fact that I want to do it. So I'm going to add funky rivets all the way along here, and I've picked this fabric and everything so it's going to look amazing. Now, this is my Funnily enough, this was an incorrect buy. When I first started making bags, so that's how old these are, I accidentally bought single capped rivets. So the post doesn't have any nice cap. So I thought this would be a really fun time to use something that was misbought in a positive way. So, first off, before I get out of my rivets, I'm going to grab my hole punch, which for me now is a cam press hole punch, and I have no regrets about switching to one of these. So if you're umming and ahhing about getting the hole punch set, I highly recommend it. They are amazing. And again, nobody pays me to tell you this stuff. And please don't think that I'm endorsed by anybody. I'm not that famous. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is put one in the center and at each end. And then what I can do is work out how much space I've got between them and add some more. So I'm going to put one there, and one there. And so then I'm going to use the ruler to do the same thing on this side. Like that. So now I've got my mark. Now this is erasable, so I could just wipe it off the vinyl, because the friction textures don't really set on vinyl very well. So if I stuff it up at all, I could just wipe it off and it's not a big deal. And then I'm just going to go along and punch all of the holes. And it's easy to punch them all at once, and then we don't have to come back and revisit the issue. There we go. So now I can grab my rivet set press. Now, because the posts don't have the caps, I'm going to be pushing all posts up from the bottom and then clipping the cap on top. And then setting it. So this is a really good way to use up misbought items. Make them more decorative. Push it in. You could probably put a couple in at the same time, so long as your holes aren't so big that it's going to slip out, because that would also suck. This is just going to look fun and decorative. So these rivets are actually smaller than the 9x9. I think from memory, they may have been 7 or 6. They're one of those two. They're definitely smaller, but it's going to give quite a nice look. Oops. Okay. So I'm going to put the cap on. Now I'm putting one cap on and then squishing just so I don't forget to do one, because it'll be really hard to fix that problem later. And I would hate for that to happen. But you could put all the posts through, then all the caps, and then squish them all. Whatever makes you happy. For that, there's not really a right or wrong response. Okay. So that's that done. So we are now up to the next step. So that one's done, so we can pop it aside. We are now preparing the front and back body exterior pieces. So we're going to take the back body piece, which is the side that you didn't put the rivet in, and that it also, where is mine? There it is. So it's also got 1 inch less foam on the back piece. So we're going to take this piece, right sides together with our flat piece. Look at us using up pieces. Right sides together, so that'll be that way. And we're going to put this, the line that we drew, and stitch that together. So we're going to line the ruled line that we did before is now going to line up with that edge, and we're going to baste it on. Back stitch, line it up, and off we go, and back stitch, because I always back stitch. Like that. Make sure that you've got everything and you haven't missed a part. Turn this over and put double-sided tape along here. But don't pull the backing off. We're just going to place the double-sided tape along that piece, like so. With right sides up. We've done the lock already. Okay. Cool. So now we're going to take our piece with the lock, and I'm just going to fold this in half because I find it easier to mark the halfway point on everything when I'm trying to line up halfways. It's just my thing. So again, this one might be a little bit more difficult, so I possibly should have found the center earlier, but that's okay. And then we're going to take that center join and we're going to match it up together with some Wonder clips. Now you always want your clips to face the gusset piece. I'm sure you're sick of me saying it if you watch all my videos, but it'll be easier in the long run, I promise. So I'm going to do the ones along the straight, and then I skip the curve and I come up and match the top edge, because it's quite easy to make it not fit. But if I've matched up the center and the edges, everything from there just has to fit. So I'm going to grab some clips and just work my way to that corner, like so. And then I'm going to come up and I'm going to do the other side. So I'm going to match the edges with my clips facing the gusset so that they're easier to pull off. And for those that are super new, this piece is the gusset. Grab some more clips. We're going to use lots of clips, and we always tend to get more clips in the curved area because it helps hold the curve in place while we try and stitch it. Look at that. I know it doesn't look very exciting yet, but it will, I promise. So, I always have gusset side up, so I'm just going to push here so that everything sits flat, and then I'm going to go back to a joining stitch length, which for me is 2.5. My stitch length, my joining stitch length never changes, but I get a bit creative with the top stitching because different things can look differently amazing. And that's just how I like to do things. Alright. Now this is going to fight me a little bit because of the stabilizer, because it's around a curve. Now I'm not technically stitching on the stabilizer, but it is forcing everything to go a different way. Little bit. It can't defeat me, but it is trying. So I'm just going to go nice and slow and pull off the clips as I go. And then backstitch. Voila. And then we're going to do the other side. So you also want to just check in here to make sure that it's all looking nice. And if you're happy, you can grab either your zigzag scissors, aka pinking shears, which mine are very blunt, or even just some scissors to trim off the excess around the curves so that they sit nicer. My pinking shears are extremely blunt, but that's okay. Still worked. We're still good to go. So now we're going to do the same to the other piece, just also making sure we don't capture the flap in any of that. So I'm going to line up my middle centerpieces here and then clip it and work my way out from that center along the straight edge like so. You can tuck the flap in now because you're not likely to be able to catch it in the seam, and it'll help the back sit up nicer. And again, clips are always facing the gusset. And then the other edge. If you've got a cylinder arm machine, you could definitely sew it this way. I can show you this way. I can do it this way, but it's usually easier with the gusset. So if we're going to do it this way, we need to make sure that we're keeping the bag as a 3D object, which getting to the corners might be a little bit harder. So I'm actually grabbing this top and bending it around like this. Not too roughly, obviously, but definitely doing it. And you have to have a lot of clips to do it this way, so it's not impossible to do. If you're really struggling with the other way, definitely give this way a try. But I personally find this way harder. But I'm going to do it in a video to show you that it can be done. You just have to keep pushing it as a 3D object. Whereas the other way, you didn't really need to do that. Like that. So again, you want to check on the inside to make sure that you haven't got any pinches in there. I'm fairly confident that I'm fine, but it's always good to check. Never be so arrogant you don't check your work, because you just never know. I'm talking, so I always try and check. Alright, and then I'm just going to trim off the excess around the curves. And I'm using these scissors this time because my zigzag ones are just stuffed. I just can't quite bring myself to throw them in the bin yet until I replace them. Okay. And then it says turn it right side out to make sure that everything is smooth and even. So it's telling us to turn it out the right way. So let's do that, because that's what the pattern says. I'm going to do what I'm told. Oh, this is so cute already. This would be a very cute Christmas present. Oh, how cute is that? Anyway, sorry. I'm getting sidetracked. We're now up to the inside. So the inside, you should have your gusset piece, your front and your back. And then we've got pocket facing, zipper pocket, and slip pocket. So the reason I can tell that is because the zipper pocket's got a front and a back. And that way you can have your fabric directional. And the way that she does pockets is different to me. So we definitely need those three pieces. So I'm going to put them aside. I'm going to fold the gusset back up so that I've got more space to deal with. So we're going to fold this over. And then I'm just going to finger crease it when it's actually even, because that's always a good start. Finger crease it like that. And then we're going to stitch down each side. Pull it out and trim your tails so that they're not in the way for the next step. Making sure we're back stitching at both ends to lock it all in. Now I've got a thread here that's gone a bit bunchy, but it's on the inside. So I'm actually going to leave it, which I'm sure you've decided is bad, but it's not going to hurt. So then I'm going to take this excess here and just trim it off at an angle. And this is going to help us get pointier corners. You just trim it off on a larger than 45-degree angle. And then turn it right sides out. Look how pointy those corners are. I like it. Now, because this is a sateen fabric that I'm using, it is a little bit thicker than what I'm normally used to because I have interfaced it. Sateen when uninterfaced is quite stretchy, whereas this, as you can see, is not at all. Okay. Trim that, done that. Right sides out, push the corners. We've done all that. So now we want to top stitch. So I'm going to go back up to my decorative top stitch length because I can't help myself. I like the decorative look. Please don't think that you have to change your stitch length for that little line. You are welcome to just not. It's totally fine. Right, back down to a joining stitch. And then I'm going to grab one of my lining pieces and I'm going to line this up along the bottom. Like so. And then I'm just going to stitch down the side and then put a divider in the center. Now, with the divider in the center, depending on what kind of bag you personally like or whoever you're making it for is like, I actually don't like perfectly symmetrical pockets. I get more use out of one larger and one smaller if I'm going to do slip pockets, but you can, by all means, do one directly in the center. It's whatever you want to do, I guess. I tend to do mine 2/3 and 1/3 as like my go-to because I can eyeball that really well. So I'm going to put mine there, and that way I've got this little section, but it's still big enough to fit like a muesli bar or a lolly if I wanted to. And then the other side is wide enough that it will fit my phone with its case on. So that's just, you know, something you might want to think about when doing your slip pockets. And like something's beeping, and I'm not sure what it is. I think it's my... Actually, I don't know what it is, but it stopped, so that's fine. All right, slip pocket is done. Pop it aside. Now we're up to our zipper pocket, which will be on the other side. So I'm going to take my ruler and a pen. And mark around the edge. I don't know why I just put the lid back on. Alright, so we're going to mark that there and that there, like so. And then somewhere in the middle. Now this is just the facing, so you don't really see this. This is just handy to install a zipper pocket. So I've ruled my box. And then I'm going to place this right sides together onto here. Keeping in mind of where I want everything to sit. Now I will be getting up to iron this because it's a thicker fabric and I won't be able to finger press this like I normally do. It will actually be too thick. Needle down, pivot, needle down, and back stitch. So then, the same as with all zipper pockets, we're going to take some scissors, or if you've got a rotary cutter and a ruler handy, you can just slice the center. I do plan on buying myself a small one that I can keep here for videos, but I haven't done it today because I haven't left the house. Alright, and then I'm just going to triangle out the corners about 1/2 inch from the edge. So I'm just cutting along what is mostly the center. Doesn't have to be perfectly the center, but you just don't want it like all the way to one edge because it's much harder to turn and iron. So you want to do what eyeballs the center. and then triangle out your corners. And then I'm going to go to the iron, and I'm going to turn all this through that pocket and iron it all super flat. And I'm going to shoot it with probably a couple of shots of steam to really make sure that it's going to stick. So I can finger it as best as possible. But it just, because of the type of fabric it is, there's no way that my finger pressing is going to actually get it done. But the idea is that you're going to have that and then this completely flat on the back. So I will be back in a minute to do it. I've ironed that and I have grabbed a piece of coffee colored zipper tape. Oh, I've called it coffee. I don't actually drink coffee. I just assume that's coffee colored, to be totally honest with you. Because the people I buy it off call it a weird number. Anyway, so we're going to grab our zipper pocket pieces and we're going to put it right sides up and then stitch along the edge. Like so. And then pull it out. And then I'm going to take the other side and do the same thing. Line it up and stitch it on. Like so. And I'm back stitching all the time because I like back stitching. Locks everything in place and I don't have to think about it again. Always, always back stitching. Alright, I'm going to move my version of a zipper jig over so you guys can see. I haven't been doing this lately. You can't see anyway. Hold on. There we go. I haven't been doing this lately and a lot of people keep asking me to show the zipper jig. So, ta-da! It is a bent fork attached to a quick release clamp from hubby's shed. So now I'm just going to split the zip open a little bit and thread it onto my zipper, maybe. Maybe not. Of course now it wants to be stubborn. Alright, fine, I'll do it by hand. Nope, this one doesn't want to behave either. Awesome. I will get there. I'll give it a few more tries and then turn the camera off and get cranky at it. Or I'll just try a different zipper. I'm going to move that so I don't stab myself in the eyeball, which, believe me, has happened more than I care to admit. Scratch myself all the time on my zipper jig. I don't understand why that's not going on. It's the right zippers for this tape. Sometimes they're just stubborn. Don't let that defeat me. I just put that zipper up head aside and grab a different one. Sometimes the zippers just don't want to play ball. These were also cheap ones, which is why I haven't put them on the website. They go alright, they're just... if they don't want to work, they don't want to work. And there's nothing you can do to convince them otherwise. Like, that's on. I can see that, you probably can't see, but it's perfectly lined up inside the zipper. It just doesn't want to shift down. Nope. Third one's the charm, right? If not, we'll go to a different zipper. That was promising. I can hear it moving. No, one side's moving. Come on. Show me the love, zipper. Please don't think that you're the only one to struggle with zips. Sometimes it's just not my day. Nope. Alright, I'm going to turn the camera off and get a different zipper. Give me a minute. So I got one of my chunky ones that I had left over from the last batch. I have ordered more, by the way, but freight for anything takes forever at the moment. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to open this up. I may even want to top stitch that down so it's out of my way. So I'm just going to fold that over. Like so, and top stitch down so that it sits down while I'm trying to stitch the zip in. Pull it out, trim the tails. Back stitch always. There we go. Now I can get that in there. Love it. So we are going to take the zipper and have it, the zipper right side up, trim off that. And I always like to have my zipper pull facing so it's closing to the left. That's just how I do all my bags. It's my personal preference. So I'm just going to lay this over the top and top stitch all the way around, about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the fabric. Needle down, I'm then going to zip it so that the zipper pull is out of my way. And then pivot with my needle down, always with the needle down, otherwise you lose your place. Needle down, and I'm pretty sure I just ran out of bobbin thread. I did. I heard it go. Bugger. That's okay. Trim off all the tails. And then I'm going to pull out my bobbin. And I'm going to, I actually leave this part of my machine threaded because I find it quicker. Since I'm like a one-woman show in a production line, I like to have as much time as possible because I don't know how much longer I've got before my husband and child return. So I'm going to lift up my foot so that it doesn't damage the bottom of it. And then I'm just going to wind a little bit. And then I went and bought this. I think it cost me like $1. It's machine oil, but I was more interested in the bottle. So it's got a little top so that I can squirt oil directly onto, whoops, that was nearly a disaster, onto the bobbin casing. Now I've got a separate video on where to do this, but the reason we do it is because the bobbin is the only place that doesn't get lubricated from the oil while it sits in. And so I got told by a machine mechanic that if you put a couple of drops of oil every time you wind a bobbin, you won't break it. It also gets a lot quieter. I don't know if you can hear the difference. I definitely can. And I also never wind my bobbins 100% full. I always make sure that they're about 3/4 to 7/8. But if I ever wind them full, I find that I get problems. And then I just have to pull off like 2 meters anyway, so there's no point in making them full. The machine doesn't like a super full bobbin unless it's been wound by like a machine, not like, I was going to say like by a machine, but technically this is a machine. But you can buy, I buy pre-wound bobbins for my embroidery machine and I have no trouble with them. But I would never fully wind a normal bobbin for it. I know that sounds a bit confusing, just bear with me. So I may as well zip this up because I can see where I need to stitch. So I'm just going to start 2 stitches back from where I ran out of stitching because I've got excess bits sitting here, which is definitely not ideal. I had a loop, so I'm going to chop off the loop. And then I'm going to go back 2 stitches and then go forward to lock everything in place and finish off the circuit. Like so. Right, so now when I fold this down, what we need to do is make these even. So you want to fold it down in the direction it's going to face, and then I can see how much I need to chop off. So I'm just going to hold them together and chop it off. You could also rule a line if you don't want to do it this way, but that was pretty quick. So now we can fold up each side like this. So we're going to put the wrong sides together, and this will just help a bit later. So you fold up those raw edges, and then we're going to stitch down each side of the pocket. Back stitch, of course. I don't know if you can hear that, but my machine is definitely a lot quieter. And I'm just going to fold the main part of the bag over out of the way so that I don't accidentally catch it in my stitching that I'm doing. So then we're going to fold over the other side as well, like so. And the idea is that there's no raw edges showing. And then tuck it under, back stitch, stitch up the side, and I stitch all the way onto the facing, like that. Now if you want to, you can go and press this with an iron. I'm not overly worried about it for now. And then I'm going to zip that open. Very important that we open that. Okay. Now we're up to joining the gusset on this lot. So I'm going to fold the gusset in half and find the center and clip the two centers. There and there. Then I'm going to fold the pocket in half and find the center there. I'm going to do the same with this one. May as well do all the centers now, and then I don't have to worry about it again. I put the scissors away. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to put right sides together and join the center and basically do what we did before, except I'm not going to use as many pins because you've already seen how to pin it. So I'm going to use my skills, I guess. So I'm going to start at the end, and then I'm just going to hold this in place. So my hands are going to be the pins, basically. This comes with practice, but it is a handy thing to be able to do. I'm also going to bend the pocket out of the way so I don't accidentally stitch it into the lining. That would suck. Then you'll have to unpick everything. And I'm doing the zipper pocket first. This is a deliberate thing. I don't want to leave the gap in the zipper pocket side. I want to leave the gap in the opposite side. So I talk about this a lot with all the bags that I do. It's easy to turn through something on the other side. So again, lining everything up. And backstitch. My machine is definitely quieter now that I've put a little bit of oil on it too. Okay, we check it, we make sure we like our corners. If we're happy, we take some scissors and we trim down the excess. This just helps the edges to sit nicer. I'm going to do it to both sides. Like so. Throw that in the bin. Okay, so now we're up to the other side. So we're going to take it. And I'm not even going to pin this one because I'm only stitching there to there. I just want to join, mainly it's about the top, but I don't want to leave the whole bottom, the whole bag exposed. So we're just going to get to like the start of the curve and then stop and backstitch. Because this is the part where we're actually going to turn the bag through. You want to leave a nice big area because the outside's quite stiff because of the base stabilizer I put on the side, on the gusset. Back stitch, again, trim off your tails. And then turn that one out the right way. So that's now our lining. So now I'm going to turn this back in the wrong way. So we just turned it out before to check that we liked all of our edges, which I do, so we're fine. And then I'm going to also, I'm going to fold this flap in half like this and then tuck it in, because we're going to find it's going to be much easier to deal with. Okay, so we want the zipper pocket on the same side as the flap pocket. So we just slot, so you've got the bag right, or the exterior is right sides in, and the lining is right sides out. So we're putting right sides together, and the front edge will have the slip pocket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the corner and I'm going to line up the seams from the two sides and put a clip in there. And then we're going to do the same to the other two sides. Put a clip, and then if we actually pull that so it's flat, it should all line up if you've done the same seam allowance throughout the bag. If you're finding that that's got, one side's got more of a loop than the other, you can actually just unclip it. So let's pretend my lining is too big for here. You can actually just come and just take a little bit more in. So you can just taper it in from the top and then come, so you start here and just taper it back down to that line so that it fits in. Now mine obviously fits, so I don't need to do that. One day I'm going to have like a pile of deliberate mistakes that I've done so I can show you how to do them all. But as I remember to talk about them, I will tell you. Okay, so I'm going to line up the next corner. Sorry, I do this in my lap because it's easier. And then I'm going to come and line up the other short corner. You can even put an extra clip in the center if you want to. And then I just need to, and this is going to be a little bit harder to pin because of the big flat piece in the way. So I might start there while stitching together. So I'm still on my joining stitch length, but the line that we drew should line up to where the fabric needs to go, which is definitely going to help. So I'm going to start here, do a couple of stitches and back stitch. That was probably a couple more than I needed, but it's still fine. And we're just slowly going to stitch around. I'm always trying to stop with the needle in the down position, and that way things won't shift while I shift the bag around. Now again, if you've got a cylinder arm machine, you would stitch it with the outside on top, and you could just go around the cylinder arm, which would make this a lot easier. Not that I'm having a lot of difficulty, but it would be even easier if I was on my other machine, especially if I was making this out of a leather or something. You would stitch it that way over the cylinder arm, and then it would just twist around that way. But anyway, just, you know, food for thought. Or if you've got a domestic machine, you stick it over like some books underneath it to lift it up, and then you can slot the bag around it that way if you're struggling. Not saying you have to do that. I also can't do that with this, so I can't show you as an option. Now I'm turning the bag through the base of the lining, that big hole that I left open, because it's the easiest way to do it. Like so. I'm going to push it, and then I'm going to stick my hand into the hole to push the lining out, like so. You're going to make sure you get all your corners nice and out, I guess is the word we're after. And then I'm going to reach my hand into the zipper pocket, and I'm going to grab the lining, or the hole in the lining specifically, and pull it through. Like that. so now we can come and line up those centers. And if you want to, you can add some clips. I'm going to do it because it's the right way to teach. But normally I would just stitch this shut. Not even gonna lie. You can usually hold it because the most of this is straight. There's only like a curved corner. Most of it is a straight line. So it is relatively easy to stitch shut. But in the interest of teaching, we put some clips on it. And then it doesn't really matter which way you face this. We're going to start here and stitch and just go around the bottom. And you just need to adjust it as you go. And then back stitch when you get back to the first lot of stitches. And I am going to trim off that tail. And I am also going to trim off some of the seam allowance so that it's going to sit flatter into the bag. Like that. And then push it back in or out, in or out, whichever way you want to look at that. I'm kind of doing both at the same time. And then with this pocket, you should just be able to stitch along because all of your raw edges are tucked in. Now again, I probably should have ironed this so it's going to sit, but because I didn't, I'm going to show you how to prevent that problem. If you don't want to have to keep getting up and down and you're like me and have not yet worked out where to put your ironing board, you can just come along and clip it. It's going to do the same thing. I'm going to get the same results. I just don't have to turn the camera off and go and use the iron. Please note though that I would most likely iron this, or I could finger press it. I'm actually mainly having this trouble that I am because this is a sateen fabric, so it's thicker and doesn't want to do what it's told. And it's extra thick because I also interfaced it. Otherwise it would be slightly stretchy, which is no good to me either. Oh, whoops, before I was supposed to stitch that, I was supposed to stick that down. Okay, we have to open this. I forgot to take off that backing of the double-sided tape. I've been thinking of it all up until this point. That's annoying. Alright, so I'm just going to unstitch that. Now there's a couple of ways you can unpick. I don't actually use an unpicker. I don't believe in them. I think they wreck more projects than they're worth. So I snip the threads. That's my thing. And usually you can pull it and then pull open this way and you can just cut them. So you pull and then clip and then pull and work your way along. So that's now a big enough hole for me to get my hand into. And then I'll just have to come along and pull off all of these bits, but that's okay. So, I can now access quite easily that double-sided tape. So I'm going to grab it, I'm going to find an edge, there's an end. And I'm going to peel off the backing, like so. And then press it to the back of the bag. Like that. And that's going to make it easy to top stitch. I assume we're top stitching. I feel like we would be. Okay. So now I'm going to re-stitch up this hole because I forgot the double-sided tape. You can't win them all. And then I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch around the edge of the top of the bag. Now again, if you're new to top stitching or if you're new to making bags and you're worried about top stitching, you could do a full 1/4 inch, which will be easier to maintain if you're a beginner sewer. It will still look nice. It's only an 1/8 of an inch difference. So it's not a huge deal if you want to do that instead. In fact, just to prove it to you, I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch. Why not? All right, zip her up. So now I just want to take some clips and clip them around to hold this where I want it to sit. Now I'm going to do a final iron of the bag with my little mini iron, and that's going to help everything kind of smooth out. And because I've used double-sided fusible bag foam, the lining will actually fuse to the foam. So it will stay seated all nicely. All right, so I'm going to clip it just, you know, around like so. And then I'm going to go back up to my 4 stitch length, and I'm going to stitch, top stitch 1/4 of an inch, just to show you that it still looks good for those that are concerned. So I'm just going to slot the bag in. Now, because I'm going completely around in a circle, I'm actually not going to back stitch, which I know is a blasphemous thing that I tell you to do all the time. You also want to make sure that these are pointed down. Whether they're D-rings or square rings is irrelevant. You don't want to actually accidentally stitch them because it'll wreck it. Now I'm going very slowly on my top stitching because I chose to do the small size of this bag. Everything will obviously be a little bit tighter. So small is not necessarily easier. I just like to point that out. That's not something that anybody ever tells you. Smaller pieces mean tighter corners and smaller holes to deal with. Always stop with your needle down, even if you have to manually crank it. Now I'm also going to chop off my tails because I can already see that they're in my way. So I'm bending the bag. I'm not even being gentle with the bag, if we're totally honest. I'm manipulating it so that I can get into where I want to. So everything's going to look nice. Because the bag I still have to do a final iron on, so it doesn't matter that I've squished it. It'll be fine. Go over 2 stitches and then back stitch, and that's all you need to lock it all in. Now I've got a thread caught in here, and I can see it. I'm going to show you. See that mess? That is unacceptable to leave there. It doesn't matter that I did it. I'm not worried about that. So I can just take the pointy part of my snips, and you can actually just kind of flick up at all the bumps that you can see. And 9 out of 10 times, something will move every time you lift it. See? Look at that. Then with that last little bit that's there, I'm just going to fray it. And voila, gone. Look at that. We're on fire. Now I'm just going to put my hands in and push everything out as like a temporary fix. How cute is that? But we're not finished because we still need to attach our adjustable strap. Now mine's a little bit longer than the pattern, but that's okay. So I always put my straps on the same way as well. So I have the bag face me, and then I always start, how am I going to do this so you guys can see? I have the bag face me. I'll lay it down, that'll help. And then I'm going to thread it down into the right side, making sure that there's no twists. This is very important. And then I'm going to feed it up one side of the strap adjuster and then down the other side. Now, even though this is quite a skinny strap adjuster, the way I made the strap with the bigger piece folded over and then just the top piece laying down means it's only 3 layers thick, which means it fits into the smaller strap adjusters. And then I'm going to come to the other side. I've made sure nothing is twisted. So I'm holding it like this, and then I'm going to come down and up like this. And I think I'm going to use some rivets there because it's going to look nice. So we want our hole punch. So I'm going to do one and then I'll do a second one. So I'm just going to punch one hole for the minute because I don't need it to be even on the other side. It doesn't really matter as much where I'm punching the holes. But I am using, this time, double capped rivets. So both of the ends have a smooth end. And I'm going to push it through, and it won't matter which side because it's double capped. And then I'm going to put the cap on, obviously. And grab my other one, like this, and squish it. So now that I'm happy that I've got that one in, it's going to be much easier to line up the second one now. So I want that one closer to the edge, like so. Squish it down, post through, cap on, and squish. And there you go. Bag's all done, guys. How cute's that? I've got a little bit of twisting going on, but that's okay. Nothing I can't fix. There's not a permanent twist. See? Once I untwist it, we're fine. So there you go. I hope that was helpful, guys. Until next time. Bye!